She told me to get out of the home I paid for, so I invited witnesses. For 37 years. This house held our memories. The mortgage statements, property tax receipts, and deed all bore my name. Yet there stood my daughter-in-law, designer luggage at her feet, declaring I didn't belong in my own living room. "Stop acting like you belong here," she'd said, settling into my late husband's chair. I didn't argue. I simply opened the folder I'd been preparing. What happened next made everyone in that room, including the deputy sheriff I'd scheduled to arrive at exactly 8:45 p.m. Understand that papers speak louder than presumptions. My name is Maggie Whitaker, and at 66, I thought I'd earned the right to peace in my own home. The afternoon I returned from Harris Teeter with groceries for one salmon fillet, arugula, that expensive goat cheese I'd finally started buying after years of choosing the practical cheddar. I found 2 Louis Vuitton suitcases in my foyer, and my daughter-in-law sprawled across my living room sofa, scrolling through her phone. Sloane. I set down the paper bags, hearing my eggs shift dangerously. "What are you doing here?" She didn't look up. "Oh, Maggie. Ethan didn't tell you our place is getting renovated. New kitchen backsplash. Finally upgrading to quartz countertops. We'll be staying here for a few days." A few days. The words hung in the air like humidity before a Carolina thunderstorm. I noticed she'd already moved my reading lamp, the one positioned perfectly for my evening crosswords, and replaced my coffee table books with her collection of lifestyle magazines. Her MacBook sat open on my writing desk, the one where I still wrote thank you notes by hand. "Where's Ethan?" I asked, though what I really meant was why didn't my son have the courtesy to call his mother before moving his wife into her house? "He'll be here after his conference call. Some big client in Singapore." She finally glanced up, her perfectly microbladed eyebrows arching. "You don't mind, do you? I mean, you have all this space." All this space. My 1,500 square foot rancher, bought with my husband Tom's life insurance and maintained with my part-time wages from the Harbour Line Community Arts Centre. Every room held a purpose, a memory, a reason. The guest room where my sister Ruth stayed during her chemo treatments. The small office where Tom had managed our finances. Where I now kept his ashes in a walnut box beside his favourite Hemingway novels. Sloane. I wish you'd called first. I might have had plans. She laughed that tinkling, dismissive sound I'd heard at too many family dinners. "What plans? Your Tuesday book club, Wednesday, water aerobics." She stood, stretching like a cat claiming territory, and walked to my kitchen. I followed, watching her open my refrigerator and wrinkle her nose. "God, Maggie, don't you have any oat milk or kombucha?" "I have regular milk and orange juice." "I'll have to DoorDash some essentials." She grabbed my filtered water pitcher, the one I refilled every morning. The one that sat in the exact spot I'd placed it since Tom died, and drank directly from it. "This renovation is costing us a fortune, but content creation is all about authenticity. You know, my followers expect a certain aesthetic." Her followers. 30,000 strangers who watched her stage other people's lives into digestible moments. I'd seen her videos, Southern Charm Christmas tablescape, filmed at my dining table last year without asking. Multi-generational beauty secrets, where she'd filmed my medicine cabinet and mocked my oil of Olay. The front door opened. Ethan walked in, didn't knock. Didn't announce himself carrying a leather duffel and his golf clubs. "Hey, Mom." He kissed my cheek distractedly, smelling of cologne that cost more than my weekly groceries. "Thanks for letting us crash here." I didn't. Babe, did you tell her about the contractor coming tomorrow? He grabbed a beer from my fridge, my beer, bought for when Ruth visited, and twisted off the cap, leaving it on my counter instead of the small dish I kept for that purpose. Contractor. My voice stayed level, but my hands found the edge of the counter. Just to measure some things, Sloane said. I thought your living room would make a perfect backdrop for my new series. Generational living bridging the style gap. Don't worry, we're not changing anything permanent. The living room where I live? Ethan rolled his eyes, the same expression he'd worn at 16 when I'd asked him to take out the trash. Mom, come on. You spend most of your time in the bedroom anyway, watching your shows. I spend my evenings in the living room, reading, in my chair, the one your father bought me for our 30th anniversary. That old recliner. Sloane scrunched her face. Ethan, we should really update that. Something in linen, maybe more photogenic. That's when she said it. The words that would change everything. Honestly, Maggie, you need to stop acting like you belong here more than family. This is a family home. The silence that followed could have frozen water. I looked at my son, waiting for him to correct his wife, to remind her whose name was on every document that mattered. He took another swig of beer and checked his phone. I need to start dinner, I said quietly. Oh, we ordered sushi, Sloane announced. Hope you don't mind. We used your address for delivery. I walked to my bedroom, my sanctuary, and closed the door. Through the thin walls, I heard them laughing, planning, reshaping my life without consultation. My hands shook as I opened the jewelry box where I kept Tom's wedding ring. This wasn't about space. It was about erasure. They wanted me to fade into the wallpaper of my own existence while they played house with my life. But I was done being wallpaper. That night, I lay awake, listening to them rearrange my living room furniture. Each scrape across the hardwood felt like fingernails on my heart. At 2:15, I heard Sloane's laugh pierce through the wall she was live-streaming from my kitchen, making what she called midnight mood boards, using my grandmother's china as props. This wasn't the first time they'd treated my home like an extension of their lives. 6 months ago, Ethan had dropped off their golden retriever for just a weekend that stretched into 3 weeks while they went to Cabo. No warning, just a text after they'd already boarded. I'd found Bailey's destruction later scratched doors, a chewed corner of Tom's leather ottoman, and somehow, impossibly, dog hair inside my sealed wedding album. Before that, there was the incident with Ethan's car. Mum, the transmission's shot. Can you cover the repair, just until my bonus comes through? $4,000 I'd earmarked for a new roof became his down payment on a BMW 2 months later. The repair loan was never mentioned again. I thought about the pattern while staring at my ceiling. The casual appropriation started small, borrowing my good serving platters and returning them chipped, using my address for packages they didn't want delivered to their luxury apartment, having me babysit their friends' children during my Saturday watercolor classes because you're so good with kids, Mum, and you're not doing anything important. The next morning, I found them in my kitchen at 6:30 Sloane filming Ethan making coffee with my French press, the one Tom brought back from our anniversary trip to Paris. Morning, Mum, Ethan said without looking up. We're out of almond milk. Could you grab some when you go out? I'm not going out today. You always go to the senior center on Thursdays. It's not a senior center. It's the arts center where I work. Sloane aimed her phone at me. Oh, perfect 3 generations in one frame. Waved to my followers. Maggie. I turned away. Please don't film me without permission. God, you're so uptight about privacy. It's just social media. She lowered the phone, but her eyes narrowed. Ethan, your mum's being difficult again. Again. As if my existence in my own home was an recurring inconvenience. Ethan walked over, using that careful voice he'd developed somewhere between condescension and concern. Mum, are you feeling okay? You seem agitated lately? I'm fine. Because at your age, changes in mood can indicate. I said I'm fine. He exchanged a look with Sloane, the kind of look that said, we'll discuss this later, the kind that made my stomach clench. That afternoon, while they were out, presumably at their apartment that was supposedly being renovated, I drove past their building. No construction vehicles, no permits posted. Through the lobby glass, I could see the concierge I'd met at their housewarming. Everything looked perfectly normal. I called Ruth from my car. They're lying about the renovation. Of course they are, my sister said without hesitation. Let me guess they're behind on rent again. How did you know? Honey? I worked in property management for 30 years. I know a lease skipper when I hear about one. They're probably using those days at your place to avoid the landlord. But they both have good jobs. Ethan makes 6 figures and spends 7. Remember last Christmas, the matching Rolexes, the ski trip to Aspen. They couldn't stop posting about that lifestyle influencer nonsense Sloane does, probably costs more than it makes. I thought about the suitcases designer, but worn at the corners. The way Sloane had inventoried my pantry like she was planning a long stay. How Ethan had already hung his suits in my guest closet. Ruth. Yesterday, Sloane told me to stop acting like I belong here. The pause was long enough for me to hear her sharp intake of breath. In your own house, the one you've been paying for since Tom died. She called it the family home, like I'm just the caretaker. Maggie, you need to. I know what I need to do. That evening, they returned with takeout boxes and shopping bags. Sloane had bought new throw pillows, geometric patterns that clashed with everything I owned, and was arranging them on my sofa while filming. These vintage couches have such potential, she narrated to her phone. With a few updates, you can transform any dated space into something fresh and inviting. Dated. My home. Where every piece had been chosen with Tom. Where we'd raised our son. Where I'd rebuilt my life after widowhood reduced to a before picture in someone else's transformation story. Mom, Ethan called from the guest room. This mattress is really uncomfortable. You should invest in something better. Memory foam. Maybe. Sloane's back is sensitive. I stood in my doorway, watching my son suggest I renovate my home for his wife's comfort while they lived there rent-free, and felt something shift inside me. Not anger that would come later. This was clarity, cold and sharp as winter air. How long is your renovation supposed to take? I asked. Oh, who knows with contractors? Sloane said breezily. Could be weeks, maybe longer. But don't worry, we'll contribute. Maybe buy groceries sometimes. Sometimes, in my house, with my life as their backdrop. That night, I pulled out the folder Tom had labeled House Documents and started reading every page. Friday morning at 8 sharp. I sat in the office of Lila Cross, the attorney who'd helped settle Tom's estate 5 years ago. She looked exactly the same, silver hair in a precise bob, reading glasses on a chain, and the kind of no-nonsense expression that made you trust her with your life. They just moved in, without asking. Tuesday afternoon, I came home to suitcases in my foyer. She pulled up something on her computer. The house is in your name only. Tom and I refinanced after Ethan graduated college. When Tom passed, I used his life insurance to pay off the mortgage. I also set up a revocable living trust. You helped me with that. Good memory. She pulled out a fresh legal pad. And your son has no legal claim, no co-signing, no financial contributions. None. In fact, I've loaned him money 12 times in the past 3 years. I have the bank transfers documented. Lila's eyebrows rose slightly. You keep good records. Tom taught me. Every receipt, every transaction, every email. Smart man. Now, North Carolina law is clear. You can revoke permission for anyone to stay in your home, family included. They're not tenants since they don't pay rent. So they're either guests or, if you've asked them to leave, and they refuse, trespassers. She explained my options while I took notes in the small notebook I'd brought. Notice to quit. No trespass order. Documentation requirements. The words felt like armor. One more thing, Lila said, studying me. That comment about your mood, your age document everything. If they're trying to establish a pattern of incompetence, you need evidence of your complete capability. I drove straight to Best Buy. The young sales associate, Marcus, according to his name tag, didn't blink when a 66-year-old woman asked about security cameras. The Nest doorbell camera is good, but if you want interior coverage, I'd suggest these. He showed me discrete cameras that looked like smoke detectors. They store everything in the cloud, time-stamped, admissible in court. How do you know about court admissibility? He grinned. Pre-law at UNC Asheville. This job pays for textbooks. I bought 3 cameras and a new smart lock system. Marcus offered to install them Sunday morning. 8 Too early. I can be in and out before anyone notices. They'll be at brunch. They always go to the Grove on Sundays. I paused. For Instagram. That afternoon, while Sloane filmed content in my garden wearing my gardening gloves, pretending to tend plants I'd nursed for years, I made other calls. Ruth agreed to be available as a witness. Bernice from next door, a retired magistrate, offered more than support. I've seen them coming and going, she said over the fence we shared. That girl parked in your driveway at 2A. Wednesday, music blaring. I have it on my Ring camera if you need it. You'd testify to that. Honey, I'd testify to a lot more. Like how she threw a cigarette butt in your roses yesterday. Tom would have had words about that. I found the cigarette butt later, filmed it with my phone, dated and labeled the video. Evidence file number 1. Saturday. I visited the sheriff's office. Deputy Collins, a woman about my age with kind eyes and a firm handshake, listened to my situation. Domestic situations are tricky, she said carefully. We can't force them out without proper documentation. But I can note your concerns. If you establish a no trespass order and they violate it, we can act. What if I give them written notice first? Try to handle it civilly. That's wise. Document delivery, certified mail, or witnessed hand delivery. Give them reasonable time, say 24 to 48 hours. If they refuse, we intervene. I spent Saturday evening in the library, using their computer to research. I found Sloane's Instagram, her YouTube channel, her TikTok. There it was, a post from Thursday. Touring our temporary home while our dream apartment gets a makeover. Swipe up for my renovation must-haves. My living room featured prominently, described as dated but full of potential. Screenshot. Save. Print. Then I found something else. Comments on her posts from someone named Derek Property MGMT. Please contact our office regarding your lease. Multiple comments, all deleted, but cached in Google's preview. I searched Derek's profile. He managed the Meridian, Ethan and Sloane's building. More screenshots, more evidence. Sunday morning, while Marcus installed my security system, I searched deeper. Found the open house listing for their apartment on Zillow, not for sale, for rent. Available immediately. Current tenants relocating. Relocating. To my guest room. Apparently. I called the property management office, pretending to be interested in the unit. Oh, that one, the agent said. Current tenants broke lease. 2 months behind. Actually. We're showing it Monday if you're interested. 2 months? That must be awkward. They were supposed to be out Friday, but... She paused. Professional discretion fighting with frustration. Well, let's just say we're handling it legally now. By Sunday evening, I had a folder 2 inches thick. Photographs, timestamps, recordings of Sloane saying she planned to stay at least a month, maybe more, to her followers. Bank statements showing my complete financial stability. Medical records from my last checkup showing perfect cognitive function. But the crown jewel was the video from my new interior camera, Sloane, in my office at 11:45 p. Sunday night, photographing my financial documents with her phone, muttering, "If we can prove she's not managing well, Ethan gets power of attorney. The house would be protected as a family asset." I sat in my bedroom, watching the footage on my phone, and felt the last of my maternal hesitation evaporate. They weren't just using me. They were plotting to take everything. It was time to plot back. Monday evening. I cooked dinner for the first time since they'd arrived. Pot roast with vegetables, Ethan's favourite as a child, though I doubted he remembered. I set the table with my good china, lit candles, and waited. "What's the occasion?" Sloane asked suspiciously when she saw the spread. She'd been cold toward me all day, probably wondering why I'd changed the Wi-Fi password. "We need to talk about boundaries," I said, serving the roast with steady hands. Ethan snorted. "Boundaries. Mom, that's rich. We're family." "Yes. Which is why I'm giving you the courtesy of this conversation instead of just changing the locks." I placed a manila envelope beside my plate but didn't open it yet. "If you're staying here, we need rules." "Rules." Sloane's voice pitched higher. "Maggie, this is my house." "Yes. So here are my terms." I pulled out a single sheet of paper, my handwriting clear and firm. 1, you may stay a maximum of 48 hours at a time, and only when invited in advance. 2, the office and master bedroom are off limits. 3, no filming inside my home without written permission. 4, no contractors, no modifications, no rearranging furniture without consent. "This is insane," Ethan said, pushing back from the table. "You're treating us like strangers." "I'm treating you like adults who should understand basic respect." I kept my voice level, though my heart was racing. "There's more. You'll sign a simple guest agreement acknowledging you have no tenant rights here." My attorney drew it up. "Your attorney?" Sloane laughed, but it sounded forced. "How dramatic." I pulled out the second document, the one Lila had prepared. This states that you're here at my discretion, that you have no claim to residency, and that I can revoke permission at any time. I'm not signing that, Ethan said flatly. This is emotional manipulation. Mum, ever since Dad died, you've been paranoid, controlling. I've been grieving. There's a difference. I met his eyes, saw Tom's eyes looking back, but without the kindness. Your father would be appalled at how you're treating me. Dad's dead, he said coldly, and you're using his memory to guilt us. The words hung in the air like a slap. Sloane actually looked uncomfortable. Sign the agreement, or leave tonight, I said quietly. You wouldn't throw out your own son. I opened the manila envelope then, pulling out just enough papers for them to see the header on top. Notice to quit revocation of license to occupy. I would. And I will. This is elder abuse, Sloane said suddenly, her phone appearing in her hand. Forcing your elderly mother to, I'm 66, not 90. I work 20 hours a week, volunteer at the literacy center, manage my own finances, and just installed a security system more sophisticated than yours. I pulled out my own phone. Would you like to see the footage of you going through my financial documents last night at 11:45? Her face went white. Or should we discuss the real reason you're here? The eviction notice from the Meridian, the 2 months of unpaid rent. How did you... Ethan started. I'm not senile, despite what you apparently told Derek at your property management company when you begged for an extension. I pulled out the printed emails their property manager had been surprisingly willing to forward the correspondence when I explained the situation. Claiming you needed to care for your declining mother to buy sympathy. That's fraud. Ethan. You went through our private... No. I made phone calls, like a competent adult, which I am, despite your campaign to prove otherwise. I spread more papers on the table. Screenshots of Sloane's social media posts, the listing for their apartment, bank statements showing my perfect payment history, medical records. What is this? Ethan's voice was smaller now. Insurance. Against whatever fiction you're planning to spin. I looked at Sloane. Power of attorney requires proving incompetence. Good luck with that. Mum, we just thought... You thought I was an easy mark, a lonely widow who'd be so grateful for company that she'd let you steal her home in slow motion. I stood, began clearing plates they hadn't touched. I was lonely. But there's a difference between lonely and stupid. So what now? Sloane asked, her influencer bravado finally cracking. You're just kicking us out. Your own family. Family doesn't rifle through private documents. Family doesn't plot to take control of assets. Family asks before moving in. I turned back to them. You have 2 choices. Sign the agreement and stay tonight and tomorrow night only, with the rules I've outlined, or don't sign, and leave within the hour. An hour, where would we go? The same place you'd have gone if I'd said no when you asked. Oh wait, you didn't ask. Ethan's face was red now, ugly with rage. You're going to regret this. Everyone will know how you treated us. Sloane has 30,000 followers. 32,000, actually, I corrected. I subscribed yesterday. Interesting content. Especially the story about the toxic mother-in-law you posted last month. Was that about me too? Or do you have another mother-in-law I don't know about? Sloane at least had the grace to look ashamed. Sign or leave, I said, placing a pen on the table. You have 5 minutes to decide. I walked to my bedroom, locked the door behind me, and sat on my bed. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from standing up after years of bending. 4 minutes and 30 seconds later, I watched the clock. There was a knock. "Mom?" Ethan's voice was different, smaller. "We'll sign." I opened the door to find them both standing there, looking like scolded children. Good. Maybe they'd finally learn. "We'll sign," he repeated. "But this is cold. Mom. Really cold." "No," I said, taking the signed agreements from their hands. "Cold is plotting to take your mother's home while eating her food. This is just business." I made copies with my printer, gave them each one, and kept the originals. 48 hours, I reminded them. Starting now. Tuesday morning brought a new violation. I woke at 6:30 to voices in my living room, not just Ethan and Sloane, but a man I'd never seen before, measuring my windows with a laser device. "Excuse me," I said, not bothering to change out of my robe. "Who are you?" "Brandon. Custom Interiors." He barely looked up. "Mrs. Parker hired me to assess renovation potential." "Mrs. Parker doesn't own this property. Please leave." "Ma'am, I was told—" "You were told wrong. This is my home, and you're trespassing." I pulled out my phone. "Would you like me to call the police, or will you leave voluntarily?" Brandon looked at Sloane, who was frantically gesturing behind my back. "I think there's been a miscommunication," he said, packing up his equipment quickly. After he left, Sloane turned on me. That was completely unnecessary. He was just taking measurements for ideas. "The agreement you signed 9 hours ago specifically states no contractors." "He wasn't technically a contractor, just a consultant." "Get out." "What?" "You violated the agreement. Your 48 hours are revoked. Pack your things and leave." Ethan emerged from the guest room, hair disheveled. "Mum, you're overreacting. It's 7 in the morning." And there was a stranger in my living room measuring for renovations I didn't approve. I pointed to the door. 1 hour. "This is insane," Sloane shrieked. "You can't just—" I held up my phone, showing them I was recording. "I can, and I am. You have 58 minutes. They didn't pack. Instead, they sat in my kitchen, whispering furiously, making phone calls. I heard Sloane say elder abuse at least 3 times and hostile environment twice. Ethan was Googling tenant rights on his laptop. At 8, exactly. They were still there. "Time's up," I said. "We're not leaving," Ethan announced. "We've been here a week. Under North Carolina law. We've established residency." "No, you haven't." I pulled out the signed agreement. "This document, which you signed, explicitly states you have no tenant rights. Additionally, you've been here 6 days, not the 14 required for any residency claim. You coerced us into signing. I have video footage of you both signing willingly, no threats made." I showed them my phone. "I also have footage of Sloane letting in an unauthorized person this morning, violating the agreement she signed." "You've been recording us. That's illegal." "Not in my own home, with cameras clearly visible." I pointed to the smoke detector camera. "There's a notice on the front door about surveillance. You walked past it every day." Sloane's next move was desperate and cruel. She pulled out her phone and started live streaming. "Friends, I need your help. My husband's mother is throwing us out on the street. We came here when our apartment flooded." Your apartment didn't flood. You were evicted for non-payment. I stayed calm, knowing I was being filmed. She kept going. And now she's being hostile and aggressive. Look at her, threatening us. I'm standing in my kitchen, asking you to honor the agreement you signed. I spoke clearly for her audience. You moved in without permission, went through my private documents, and planned to file for power of attorney to take my home. The comments started immediately. I could see them on her screen, not what she expected. Girl, you moved into her house without asking. Team mother-in-law on this one. Why would you film yourself trespassing? Sloane's face flushed. She ended the stream. That afternoon, they escalated further. I returned from a grocery run to find my neighbor Bernice on my porch, looking concerned. Maggie, that son of yours just asked me if I'd noticed any confusion or memory issues with you lately. What did you tell him? That you're sharper than my 30-year-old daughter and twice as organized. She patted my hand. Also told him I saw his wife trying to change your mailbox lock yesterday. Got it on video if you need it? Inside, I found them in my office, the room I'd explicitly banned them from. Ethan was photographing documents from my filing cabinet. Those are my tax returns, I said quietly. He didn't even look guilty. If you're going to act irrationally, I need to protect the family assets. What family assets? This is my house, my pension, my savings. Dad would have wanted... Your father? I said, my voice sharp as ice. Would be disgusted. He worked 2 jobs to pay for this house. He died thinking his son was a good man. That landed. Ethan flinched, but Sloane pushed harder. We know about the insurance money, Maggie. 400,000. Where did it all go? Into trust funds, investments. This house's maintenance. I pulled out my phone. And now you're on camera, in a room you're forbidden from entering, going through documents you have no right to see. That's breaking and entering, theft of private information, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You can't prove conspiracy. I played the audio from Sunday night. Sloane's voice, clear as day. If we can prove she's not managing well, Ethan gets power of attorney. The house would be protected as a family asset. You recorded me without consent. In my own home, where you were trespassing in my office. I looked at my son. I'm calling the sheriff now. You can explain to Deputy Collins why you're stealing your mother's financial documents. You wouldn't call the cops on your own son. I was already dialing. Deputy Collins. This is Maggie Whitaker. Yes. The situation we discussed. They're here now. In my office. Photographing financial documents. Yes. I have it on video. Thank you. Ethan's face went from red to white. You actually called. She'll be here in 10 minutes. You can leave now, or you can explain to law enforcement why you're committing identity theft. They ran. Actually ran. Grabbed their suitcases, threw them in their Tesla, and peeled out of my driveway. But not before Sloane screamed from the passenger window, "You'll die alone, you bitter old witch." I stood on my porch, waving goodbye like a proper Southern lady. They'd be back. I knew it. This wasn't over. But now I was ready. Thursday evening. I set the dining room table for 6. The good china gleamed under the chandelier Tom had installed for our 20th anniversary. Each place setting was perfect salad fork, dinner fork, knife, spoon, water glass, wine glass. Just as my mother had taught me, just as I'd tried to teach Ethan. Ruth arrived first, carrying her famous pecan pie and a spine of steel. You sure about this? she asked, surveying my preparations. They need to understand this isn't a private family squabble anymore. I adjusted a napkin. It's a documented situation with witnesses. Bernice came next, still in her court stenographer blazer from her part-time retirement gig. Brought my recording device, she said quietly. The legal one, just in case. Paul Morrison, the HOA president, arrived at 6:45 sharp. He'd been Tom's golf partner and had watched Ethan grow up. The disappointment in his eyes when I'd explained the situation had been profound. Tom would have sorted this out with a firm handshake and a stern word, he said, settling into his chair. Tom's not here, and they're beyond stern words. The doorbell rang at 7 exactly. I'd texted Ethan that morning. Family dinner tonight? 7 we need to resolve this properly. Bring Sloane. They stood on my doorstep like strangers selling something I didn't want. Ethan wore a suit, his power play outfit. Sloane had chosen a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly utilities. Mum, Ethan said stiffly. We need to talk about... He stopped, seeing the others. What is this? A family dinner, with family friends who've known you since childhood. I gestured to the table. Please, sit. They exchanged glances but entered. The smell of pot roast filled the air again. His childhood favourite. Psychological, maybe. But I wanted him to remember who I'd been before he decided I was an obstacle. This is an ambush, Sloane said, not sitting. This is transparency, I replied. You've made serious accusations about my mental state to neighbours, posted on social media about elder abuse, and attempted to establish grounds for taking control of my assets. These people deserve to know the truth. Paul spoke first. Ethan, your mother asked me here as HOA president. She's concerned about potential property disputes and wants everything documented properly. There's no dispute, Ethan said quickly. Just family dynamics. Family dynamics that involved changing her locks without permission. Bernice asked. I have the video of Sloane with a locksmith yesterday at 2:15 p.m. I hadn't known about that. The violation stung fresh. We were trying to have copies made of keys to a house you don't own after being told to leave. Ruth's voice was steady. That's attempted breaking and entering. I pulled out the manila envelope I'd placed on the sideboard. Before we go further, let's establish facts. I spread the papers on the table. Deed to the house my name only. Mortgage satisfaction document paid in full. Property tax receipts paid by me. Homeowner's insurance my policy. We know you own the house, Ethan said through gritted teeth. Do you? Because this document suggests otherwise. I pulled out a screenshot from Sloane's Instagram. Quote, getting ready to renovate the family estate. Sometimes the older generation needs help seeing potential. Posted yesterday, after I'd legally revoked your access. That was just... And this. Another screenshot. From your LinkedIn, Ethan, managing family property transitions while maintaining career momentum. Posted Monday. Paul's face darkened. You're implying you're taking over your mother's property. It's not like that. Then explain it, Ruth challenged. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're publicly claiming rights to something that isn't yours. Sloane tried a different tactic. Maggie's been erratic, paranoid. She installed cameras to spy on us. I installed cameras after you went through my financial documents. I played the video on my phone, passing it around the table. Sunday, 11:45 p.m. Bernice gasped. That's your office. Maggie. The one with the filed tax returns. The same. I've been keeping those kinds of documents for 40 years, Paul said slowly. And the only reason someone photographs them is identity theft or fraud. We weren't, Ethan started. I also have this. I pulled out a printed email. From Derek at Meridian Properties, confirming you told him you needed to move in with your declining mother to avoid eviction proceedings. That's fraud. Ethan, using a false claim about my health for financial gain. The room went silent. There's more. I pulled out my phone, opened a recording. Ethan's voice filled the room. If we can establish she's not competent, we get the house. It's worth at least $500,000 now. We could sell, invest the money, set her up in a nice assisted living place. When was this recorded? Ruth demanded. Tuesday night? In my guest room. They didn't know the smoke detector had a microphone. Sloane stood abruptly. This is illegal. You can't record. I can in my own home, especially when preventing elder abuse, the real kind, not the fictional type you've been claiming. Paul stood too, his full height imposing. Ethan, I've known you since you were 6. I taught you to ride a bike in that driveway. What happened to you? Nothing happened. We're just trying to help. By plotting to take her house, by filing for power of attorney, Paul's voice was disgusted. Your father would be ashamed. That did it. Ethan exploded. Stop throwing Dad in my face. He's dead, and she's sitting on a fortune while we're struggling. You're struggling because you live beyond your means, I said quietly. The Tesla, the designer clothes, the trips to Aspen. I have the receipts. Ethan, you posted them all online. Our financial situation isn't your business. It became my business when you tried to make my finances yours. Ruth pulled out her phone. Should I call Adult Protective Services now I have a friend who works there? She'd be very interested in this attempted financial exploitation of a senior. You wouldn't dare, Sloane hissed. Try me. Ruth's smile was sharp. I've been watching you manipulate my sister for 2 years. The borrowed money never returned. The emotional blackmail. The constant requests. It ends now. I stood, walked to the front door, and opened it. You have one chance to leave with dignity. Walk out now. Never contact me about money or property again. And this stays in this room. Or, Ethan challenged, or I file a restraining order with the evidence I've collected, pursue charges for attempted fraud and identity theft, and make sure everyone, including your employer, knows exactly what kind of man you are. You'd ruin your own son. You've ruined yourself. I'm just documenting it. The silence that followed could have frozen blood. Then Sloane, in her infinite wisdom, pulled out her phone and started recording. Everyone needs to see this, she announced, going live on Instagram. My mother-in-law is having some kind of breakdown, making wild accusations. Perfect timing, I said calmly, walking to the sideboard. Since you're broadcasting, let's share everything with your followers. I laid out each document like playing cards at a high-stakes poker game. Here's the deed to this house. I held it up to her camera. Notice the single name, Margaret Louise Whitaker. Not Ethan, not Parker. Stop! Sloane reached for the papers. Here's the trust document, establishing this as my sole property. I continued, dodging her grasp. Here's the notice to quit I had prepared, giving you 24 hours to vacate after you violated our agreement. The comments on her live stream started flowing faster than water. Wait, you moved into her house. Girl, this is not the flex you think it is. Team Mill all the way. I picked up the next document. This is particularly interesting, a screenshot of your post claiming you were renovating the family estate. Sloan, you don't have a family estate. You have an eviction notice from Meridian Properties? Turn that off. Ethan lunged for her phone, but I was already holding up the next paper. Speaking of eviction, here's the email from your property manager confirming you're 2 months behind on rent. 35,000 followers, but you can't pay 3,500 in rent. Paul cleared his throat. Maggie, perhaps we should… No, I said firmly. They wanted an audience. They've been performing their fiction online for weeks. Time for the truth to have its moment. I pulled out my phone, connected it to my Bluetooth speaker. This is from Tuesday night, recorded in my home. Sloane's voice filled the room, clear and calculating. The old woman has no idea what her house is worth. If we can get her declared incompetent, we'll sell it. 500,000 at least. Maybe more if we stage it right. The Instagram comments exploded. Her viewer count was climbing 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people watching her exposure in real time. Turn it off. Ethan grabbed for Sloane's phone, but she pulled back. No, they need to see what you're doing to us. She swung the camera toward me. This woman is vindictive and protecting her property. Bernice interrupted, stepping into frame. I'm her neighbor and a retired court stenographer. I've documented everything I've witnessed, including you attempting to change her locks yesterday afternoon. Ruth joined the frame. I'm her sister. I have records of every loan she's given you two that was never repaid. $17,000 over 3 years. 17,000. Paul's voice carried perfectly. Tom left her comfortable, not wealthy. That's probably a significant portion of her savings. I pulled out the crown jewel, a folder marked security footage. Should I show your followers the video of you going through my financial documents, or the one where you're discussing which nursing home would be cheapest to put me in? Here's a good one, you practicing your concerned face for when you'd report my declining mental state to authorities. Sloane's phone shook in her hand. The viewer count hit 5,000. Enough, Ethan said, his voice different now, defeated. Mom, please. Enough. Is it because Tuesday you told Bernice I was showing signs of dementia? Wednesday you asked Paul if he'd noticed me being confused. This morning you called my doctor's office pretending to be concerned about my mental state. You called her doctor. Ruth's voice was dangerous. HIPAA violation. Bernice added. That's federal. I walked to my desk, pulled out the final folder. This contains the cease and desist letter from my attorney, the no trespass order filed with the sheriff's department, copies of every piece of evidence we've discussed tonight. I placed it on the table with the satisfying thud of finality. And this, I pulled out one last document, is the receipt from Riverbend Moving Company. I've paid for 3 hours of their service, starting at 8:45 tonight. What? Ethan looked at his watch. 8:20 p.m. Your belongings will be professionally packed and delivered to the storage unit I've also paid for first month's free at Public Storage on Merriman Avenue. After that, it's your responsibility. The doorbell rang. Deputy Collins stood on my porch, not in uniform, but clearly official. Mrs. Whitaker, you requested a civil standby. I did. These two need to collect their remaining belongings and leave. They've been formally trespassed. Sloane's live stream was chaos. Comments flying. Viewer count at 8,000. Someone had screen recorded everything and was already reposting clips. "You've destroyed us," she whispered, finally lowering her phone. "No, I've simply refused to let you destroy me." I handed Deputy Collins the paperwork. "They have signed acknowledgement of receiving this notice. If they return without invitation, it's criminal trespass." The movers arrived, efficient and professional. They packed Ethan and Sloane's belongings, while my dinner guests and Deputy Collins watched. Every designer bag, every expensive gadget, every piece of the life they couldn't actually afford. As they prepared to leave, Ethan turned to me one last time. "Mum, I'm your son, your only child. How can you do this?" I walked to the mantel, picked up the photo of Tom and me on our wedding day, then the one of Ethan at 5, grinning with his first bike. My son would never plot to steal my home. My son would never try to have me declared incompetent. My son would ask if I was okay living alone, not scheme to take what I'd built. So that's it. You're choosing property over family. You chose property over family the moment you photographed my financial documents. I set the photos down gently. I'm just better at paperwork. Deputy Collins escorted them to their Tesla. Sloane was crying, whether from genuine emotion or for her still-running live stream. I couldn't tell. The viewer count had hit 12,000. As their car pulled away, Paul placed a hand on my shoulder. "You okay, Maggie?" "I will be." Ruth hugged me tight. "You did what you had to do." Bernice was looking at her phone. "That live stream is already going viral. Entitled, 'Couple Tries to Steal Mum's House, Gets Served Instead.'" I walked to my door, my witnesses behind me. Thank you all for coming, for witnessing, for making sure the truth was louder than the lie. At exactly 9 p.m. I changed the smart lock code. The new one was my wedding anniversary, a date Ethan had forgotten for the past 5 years. The house fell silent at 9:05 p.m. Ruth, Bernice, and Paul had left after helping me clean up the untouched dinner. Deputy Collins had filed her report. The movers had driven away with their cargo. For the first time in a week, I was alone in my own home, truly alone, without the threat of intrusion. I walked through each room, setting things right. The reading lamp returned to its perfect position. Tom's chair angled just so. The coffee table books, his collection of national parks we'd planned to visit back where they belonged. In the guest room, I opened windows to let out the designer perfume and desperation that had accumulated. At 9:30 p.m., I made myself tea in my favorite mug, the one Ethan had made me in 3rd grade art class, lumpy and painted purple because purple is your happy color. Mommy. I sat in Tom's chair for the first time since he'd passed. It still smelled faintly of his pipe tobacco and Old Spice. My phone buzzed. 17 missed calls from Ethan, 43 texts from Sloane. I deleted them all unread, then blocked both numbers. If there was ever a real emergency, they could contact Ruth. The next morning brought unexpected vindication. Bernice knocked at 7:30 a.m. with her phone extended. "You need to see this." Sloane's live stream had been shared over 1 million times, but it wasn't the sympathy she'd expected. Someone had edited it brilliantly every time she'd made an accusation. They'd inserted the actual evidence refuting it. Her claim of elder abuse cut to me calmly presenting documents. Her tears about being homeless cut to the eviction notice from their luxury apartment. Her wails about family cruelty cut to the recording of her planning to put me in the cheapest nursing home. "The internet has spoken," Bernice said, "and it's not pretty for them." By noon, Ethan's company had called. Someone had forwarded them the live stream, particularly the part about fraud and identity theft. He was being placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Sloane's influencer career imploded spectacularly, brands dropping her, followers departing in droves, her comments section a masterclass in public shaming. I felt no satisfaction in their downfall, only relief that the truth had witnesses beyond my dining room. That afternoon, I had the locks rekeyed, real locks with real keys. I gave one to Ruth, one to Bernice. The smart lock went in the garage sale pile. Some things shouldn't be so easily hacked. At 3 p.m., sitting at my kitchen table with legal pad and pen, I wrote 2 letters. The first, to Ethan. "You are my son, and I will always love the boy you were. But I cannot enable the man you've become. When you're ready to have a relationship that doesn't revolve around my assets, you know how to reach your aunt. Until then, please respect my boundaries and my peace." The second, to myself, "You survived, you stood up, you said no. Tom would be proud." I sealed Ethan's letter, addressed it to the storage unit, and put it in the mailbox. My letter. I folded and tucked into Tom's wedding ring box. That evening, I cooked for 1 salmon with arugula and that expensive goat cheese. I ate at the dining room table with the good china and a glass of wine. No cameras recording. No audience performing. No one plotting in my guest room. Just me, remembering what peace sounded like. The doorbell rang at 8 p. My heart clenched had they come back, but the security camera showed Marcus, the young man from Best Buy. "Mrs. Whitaker, I saw the video online. Everyone's talking about it. I just wanted to check if you were okay." "I'm fine, Marcus. Better than fine." He shifted awkwardly. "My grandmother went through something similar with my uncle. She didn't have cameras, though, or documents. She lost her house. I'm sorry." "Don't be. You've given a lot of people a playbook for protecting themselves. My gram shared your video with her whole senior center. You're kind of a hero." After he left, I stood in my doorway, looking at my home. Every mortgage payment made, every repair handled, every tax bill paid, every memory preserved. This wasn't just property, it was proof of a life lived, a marriage honored, a future secured. My phone buzzed one last time. An unknown number. But I recognized the area code Sloane's parents in Texas. The message was brief. "We saw everything. We're sorry. You did the right thing." I deleted it. Apologies from strangers couldn't undo the betrayal from family. At 9 p.m., I performed my new ritual: check the locks, set the cameras, review the day. Then I sat in my chair by the window, not Tom's chair, but mine, and opened a book I'd been meaning to read for months. Somewhere in the city, my son and his wife were probably raging, planning, scheming their next move. Let them. I had witnesses. I had documentation. I had the deed to my home and the will to defend it. But most importantly, I had something they'd never understood: the strength that comes from knowing your worth isn't measured in what others can take from you, but in what you refuse to give away. I turned the page of my book, settled deeper into my chair, and smiled. The house was quiet. The house was safe. The house was mine. I pulled out the final document from the side table drawer, a new will I'd had drawn up that week. Everything would go to charity upon my death. The local women's shelter, the literacy program, the community arts centre where I still worked. Not a penny to those who'd tried to steal it while I lived. I folded the will, placed it back in the drawer, and returned to my book. Outside, November wind rustled through the trees Tom and I had planted on our 5th anniversary. Inside, the grandfather clock he'd restored chimed the hour. 9 o'clock. All was well. The house rules, my rules, were finally, firmly in place. And at the top of the list, written in my own hand and posted on the refrigerator where I'd once displayed Ethan's kindergarten artwork. This home is mine by deed, by right, and by the 27 years of love that built it. Entry by invitation only. Violations will be met with consequences. Peace will be protected at all costs. Margaret Louise Whitaker, sole owner. Beneath it, I'd taped the photo from Ethan's 5th birthday before he learned to want what wasn't his. Before Sloane. Before greed replaced gratitude. In the picture, he was hugging me, chocolate cake on his face, pure joy in his eyes. That was the son I'd mourn. The one in my driveway last night was a stranger who happened to share his face. I turned off the lamp and headed to bed, leaving only the porch light on, not for them, but for me. A beacon that said someone lives here. Someone who fought for this space. Someone who won. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your own thoughts about family, boundaries, and standing your ground. Have you ever had to protect what's yours from those who should have protected you? Let's discuss in the comments.